The Little Spider. This is a story about a little baby spider who saved Jesus' life. King Herod was very much afraid of the baby Messiah. He had been visited by wise men and kings from foreign lands. All traveled to pay tribute to the newborn baby who was destined to bring a new kingdom to the world. He was becoming more fearful of losing power, especially to a baby, and placed orders for all children 2 years and younger to be killed. Sometimes even the parents were killed trying to protect their children. Jesus' parents, as well as others who have heard the news, fled to Egypt for safety. They traveled mostly during the night so that they would not be seen, but the vast Roman armies were quickly catching up to guard the borders. It was much quicker to cross the open plains, but very difficult to go over the rugged mountain terrain, especially when you're carrying a newborn baby. Guided by the angels, they started their journey over the mountaintops. From their viewpoint at nighttime, they could see the campfires of the approaching Roman soldiers, and at times were able to hear their voices. Mary was very fatigued and needed some rest. After all, she had just recently given birth and had very little time to recover before fleeing for their safety. As they traveled over one of the mountaintops, they came across a series of caves. Joseph, lighting a torch, looked into the caves to see which one was better suited to hide in. Mary was already sleeping on the ground when Joseph returned. Jesus as well was calmly sleeping in her arms. Joseph carried them as quickly as he could to the back of one of those caves. Before leaving, Joseph, being a carpenter and therefore skilled with his hands, had made a sword. While Mary and Jesus hid, Joseph kept guard just in case the soldiers entered the cave. They were so far into the cave they could not see the opening anymore. This was Joseph's strategy, for what soldier would want to search a deep, dark cave, chance of meeting a wild animal in one of them? By nightfall, the Roman army was already at the bottom of the mountain terrain, where Joseph and his family were hiding. The soldiers were preparing their evening meals, sharpening their weapons, and sharing war stories. By morning, they would surely be searching the caves. The cave Joseph and his family were hiding in did not have a wild animal in it, but it did have another inhabitant, a little baby spider. This spider was awakened when Joseph carried his family into the cave. He was curious as to why anyone would want to be entering a cave, so when Joseph came out of the cave to check on the soldiers, the little spider climbed onto Joseph and journeyed with him to the mountain edge. There they saw and heard the soldiers. With tears in his eyes, Joseph quietly prayed to God. Father of Abraham, I was guided by a dream to be with Mary. I was guided by you to protect her and the baby. I see only death within reach of me and those I love. I see nothing beyond the next day but those who have already passed away. To quietly leave now, unseen by the Romans, and those you blessed me with, would be a fate worse than death itself. I may never fully understand, but I do know that I'd rather die living than to live dead. And I choose to follow my heart and stand ready to do what my mind says otherwise. Scared, but I will protect them with my life. You do not have to worry about me. The little spider, hearing Joseph's prayer, was deeply moved. He did not know anything about the baby Messiah, but his heart was moved by the love and sacrifice of a father. When Joseph returned to the cave to check on his family, the little spider jumped off of him. The little spider wanted to help, but what could a spider do, especially a baby spider? So he thought for a moment and immediately had an idea. The spider crawled to the cave's opening and began to make a spider's web, but not any ordinary spider's web. This would be the first spider's web, and he wanted it to be the biggest and best of any kind. After all, he wanted to help the family whom he had heard Joseph pray about. And so during the long cold night, this little spider kept weaving his beautiful web. Never once did he take a rest or slow down. Running along strands of web and swinging through the air, this spider focused everything he had into completing his first spider's web. As the sun was coming up over the horizon, the Roman soldiers were preparing their journey up the mountainside. Joseph was deep in the cave, never to have gone to sleep. The baby spider was very slow compared to much older and experienced spiders, but he kept working as fast as he could while the soldiers came closer and closer. As the soldiers approached the opening of the cave where Joseph's family was in, they stopped. There before them was a wall of web, a web pattern like none has ever been seen before. The morning dew was already covering the web, and as the morning light was hitting the web, an array of incredible beautiful colors was reflecting off of it. It looked as if a rainbow was covering the cave's entrance. And to add more beauty to it, as the soldiers moved around, they could see the changing colors of the web. A combination of morning dew and light had blinded them with beauty. It was as if they were looking upon the door to heaven. The army commander, as well as the others, was so impressed with the beauty of the web that they stared at it for what appeared to be for eternity. Not just the colors shining off of it, but patterns within patterns. Soldiers were seeing all sorts of shapes and symbols, artwork like no one has ever created before. No one wished to damage it, or excuses were being passed around as to ways to protect it. The commanding officer reasoned that it would have taken many days to weave such a magnificent web, and if anyone had entered the cave would have surely damaged the web. He had given orders to protect the spider's web. Joseph, being at the back of the cave and surely hearing every word of the soldiers were saying, was curious about this spider's web, and he would have surely seen it when they entered the cave. By evening, when the army had moved onward towards the other mountain terrains, Joseph awoke Mary, and they made their way to the cave's entrances. There they saw the same rainbow effect from the evening sunset, which the Roman soldiers had seen from the morning sunrise. During the whole day, not once did Jesus cry or make trouble to endanger his parents as well as his own life. Mary awoke Jesus so he could see the beautiful spider's web. He saw the different colors and began laughing with great joy. After the sun had set, Joseph used his sword to cut an opening so they could continue their journey to Egypt. Leaving the cave, Jesus began smiling and waving towards an area of the cave. Mary was curiously looking around to see what he was looking at, but saw nothing, for he was waving directly towards the little spider that had saved him and his family. Making their way through the terrain in safety into Egypt, avoiding the armies that King Herod had sent out with orders to kill the king of the Jews, they stayed until it was safe to return home. The little spider was honored to have saved their life. Taught by a prayer, the little spider learned to help others the best way he could. From the sacrifice of a whole night's rest, the whole world was able to come closer to understanding this, creating a thing of beauty that has inspired the world with a love for others to be a part of.